Some breaking news out of Pakistan. New hope for the brave young girl who was shot in the head for speaking out against the Taliban.
She was shot because she spoke up for the 31 million girls around the world who cannot get an education.
All of this happened in what was previously the beautiful, serene valley of Swat, which is famous for its snow-peaked, lush green mountains, valleys with fruit orchards, and many rivers and streams. This is the world in which Malala was born. A world where traditionally the young girls and women are confined behind the tall mud and brick walls of their homes. Only 10 to 20% of girls are enrolled in primary education, spending most of their childhood doing housework and end up getting married in their teenage years.
However, this girl known to the world as Malala Yousafzai had different intentions and showed extraordinary interest in reading, writing, and learning. While all of her friends and cousins spent their days at home or in the courtyard playing games, she found herself as the only girl in a classroom full of boys. It helped that her father, Ziauddin Yousafzai, was a school teacher and ended up opening a girls' school only a few years later. She was born in a patriarchal society in which even her own mother questioned her going to school. Malala successfully broke the barrier of patriarchy and strict Pashtun traditions by defying the ideology and continuing to learn.
Malala wanted to rewrite the centuries-old collected wisdom that women cannot achieve any honors in their society. This was a sign that more momentous events were about to unfold in Swat Valley. When Malala was only 10 years old, the militant Taliban group occupied her hometown of Mingora in Swat Valley. True to their word and hateful ideology, the occupiers banned all forms of Western education and learning.
To deter the children from going to school, the Taliban bombed and destroyed over 400 school buildings, 70% of them being schools for girls only. The government of the day appeared helpless in the face of these terrorist activities. Anyone raising his or her voice against these atrocities was killed. Even in the face of extreme danger, Malala never gave up hope, and her desire to get her education never faded.
First barrier was patriarchy, and then added to that, the worst barrier or the most difficult barrier that we came across was Talibanization. You can call it religious extremism, bigotry, and it was like when Taliban they started their heinous propaganda against girls' education. 50,000 girls, they lost their right to education. So that was something which was extremely devastating. It changed Malala from a student to a fighter for the right of education.
Here again, breaking all barriers of despair and fear, Malala never locked up her books and pen. With the support of her father, she wrote a blog for BBC and constantly updated the world of the perils of living a life in dangerous times. She knew of the threats and the danger to life and property to her family, but continued to raise her voice.
Silence was not an answer when your basic rights are violated. You have to raise your voice. Our voice matter. Everyone's voice matter. This one girl with a book and a voice, she became a very big threat to the Taliban and to their ideology.
Her barrier-breaking courage was acknowledged by many in Pakistan and abroad. She suffered 3 months of exile from her home as battles broke out between the Pakistani army and Taliban militants.
Malala and her family could have stayed away from this still dangerous place. Malala had offers by authorities to relocate her to safer cities, but she declined these offers. Malala and her barrier-breaking courage again went against the tide and returned to her small war-ravaged town, rebuilt her school with her father, and started her education.
She was barely 13 when she returned, but argued openly and loudly for the girls' right to education. At this time, the Taliban leaders in hiding started openly threatening her, but that did not deter her from naming and shaming them in her speeches and interviews.
On October 9, 2012, while on a school bus, a Taliban gunman shot Malala and 2 other girls in an assassination attempt in retaliation for her activism. After being attacked, the Army Chief General Kayani ordered for her to be evacuated to a hospital in Peshawar, where intensive care specialist Dr. Fiona Reynolds kept her stabilized. Malala suffered life-threatening bullet injuries to her face and head and had to be transferred to the UK for life-saving surgery and rehabilitation. She found herself in a foreign land, living in an unfamiliar society, facing the challenge of full recovery.
It was really the difference in culture and being away from our own homeland, from our own people. It was very difficult. Slowly and gradually, we got used to this new environment. Local people, community in the UK, they were very supportive, friendly, welcoming, and they really helped us a lot in overcoming this new situation, our new life. They helped in our social rehabilitation, in Malala's physical rehabilitation.
She not only miraculously survived, but also continued her school education and advocacy. She proved to the whole world, once again, that the strength of her convictions was unbreakable. Overcoming physical, emotional, and societal barriers, she never wavered and in the process won the Sarkov Peace Prize in 2013 and the Nobel Peace Prize in 2014 for her struggle against the suppression of children and young people and for the right of all children to education, becoming the youngest person in history to receive such an honor.
I'm proud, but in fact I'm very proud to be the first Pashtun, the first Pakistani, and the youngest person to receive this award.
People's opinion about Malala apparently got polarized, and she faced and still faces criticism from some in Pakistan. The biggest being that if she cares, why doesn't she return? That the shooting was staged and that she was a Western stooge. Her foundation, the Malala Fund, was founded in 2013. It invests in educators and activists working in countries where girls are most likely to face barriers to their education, and Pakistan is also one of those countries. The motto is 12 years of free, safe, quality education for girls. In 2018, she returned to her hometown and pledged to open a school which is now up and running. Malala facilitates girl education and supports many schools and academic programs in Pakistan.
However, as time passed, the story provided even more impetus for people to believe in and to support her cause. As a result of her assassination attempt, the UN launched a campaign calling for the education of all children worldwide, and that eventually led to Pakistan's first right to education bill. Malala refused to accept gender inequality as status quo, and her struggle gave opportunities to young girls to learn, earn, and live safe and healthy lives.
And the fact that Malala, starting at 11 years old, stood up into such intense pressure, risking her life for one so young, is a act of courage that probably few can equal. This is very inspiring to show people that in spite of death threats, you need to stand up and fight for what you believe in. This kind of action is what changes the world, what inspires the world, inspires millions of other people.
132 million girls worldwide are out of school. 15 million girls of primary school age will never have the opportunity to learn to read and write. These numbers remind us of the stagnant trends of gender inequality in education. Educated women will be active in the labor market, earn higher incomes, have better health care, and the combination of these will help lift households, communities, and even nations to an equal ground.
Malala's voice has helped motivate action in countries like India, Nigeria, Afghanistan, and Brazil, along with her continued efforts in Pakistan. Approaching world leaders, training young girls to speak up for their basic rights to education, and using technology to increase access to education are some of the means through which the Malala Fund has made their mark in these countries. As the next decade begins, it is imperative we remember these words Malala powerfully spoke at the UN General Assembly.
One child, one teacher, one book, and one pen can change the world.